Yes. What is good in Soccer We Trust family? Hope you had a good weekend. Unless you're a Liverpool supporter, then you probably didn't. Anyway, hit like and subscribe, and then jump into the comments as we look ahead to Wednesday's big U.S. men's national team game versus Morocco. And of course, let's do this. Yes. What is up, everyone? And welcome to Sunil Galati's favorite podcast in Soccer We Trust. We finally have the whole gang back together after Charlie Chuckwagon Davies was too busy to be a part of the Mark McKenzie interview last week, which I think just proves that he's clearly not a big Mark McKenzie fan. And this also after Heath Pearce decided to go full Hollywood on us by going to Paris and missing out on the last show to see the Champions League final, which must have been nice. Anyway, Charlie, I can sense you're ready to defend yourself about why you missed out on the interview. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was one of those things that I thought it wasn't this Wednesday, so I didn't really plan. But I also got to give a shout out to Heath just for also being a part of the series Storage Wars, because he's clearly looking through the storage to see if he can find anything of value.
Or he's a hostage somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on. I don't know if you can't see Heath. He's in a closet somewhere. That's all we know. And
hey, all I know is that I told my wife, hey, you got to see Charlie's like wood walls and things like that. And so she's like, go order them up, and this is what I got. This is what came. Turns out it's a lot more expensive than I thought.
It's close. So Heath, since we have to live vicariously through you, how was Paris? Are you still there?
Yeah, I got a chance to see.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, one more day. I'm leaving. I'm actually
yeah.
In a tiny little closet right now doing this, but it was a good experience going to the Champions League final. It was the first Champions League final I'd been to, and seeing sort of just all of the kind of circusness of it. The theatrics of it was pretty cool. LeBron James was in the house. It was pretty cool crowd there. Obviously, for the Liverpool supporters, we know we have a ton of them in the U.S. It was a pretty frustrating experience, I think, for a lot of them trying to get into the stadium. But overall, it's been a great trip so far. And just again, when you come here, you see like all the little football pitches popping up all over the place, and you just hope someday we can get to that point where you just see random kids like right outside the stadium. There's like 10 kids, definitely don't have any tickets, just from the neighborhood playing a pickup game, literally in this cage right outside the stadium. Is pretty cool to see. Them have nothing to do with the Champions League.
For you, what was the best part off the field and on the field while you were there?
Off the field, yeah, it was just, when you see traveling support the way that you do, you hope that someday, obviously we have this vast country that the U.S. is, and we know that we have a good traveling contingency for the U.S. for World Cups and things like that. But when you think about club teams and you just see the way that Liverpool came in, obviously it's the biggest stage, it's the Champions League final, just to see the way that they traveled, to see the way that Real Madrid traveled, that was probably my favorite thing, just because it was kind of a city takeover for the day. And then honestly, on the field or in the stadium, my favorite part was just seeing Real Madrid change their game and just be willing to fight in a team that nobody expected, and a team that you go back 2 months ago, we were saying had no opportunity to win anything or do anything other than sort of their domestic, because nobody else seemed to want it. To have them go on and win this double is a pretty spectacular thing given the age of their players. We talked about, if Mbappe goes to Real Madrid, he's going to ask for 7 or 8 new players, but you go and see and you wonder, who do they need now, even though they are a bit old.
Yeah, what I loved, and then we're going to transition into all of our U.S. soccer talk as we do, was the fact that this could maybe be the hardest road that any team has ever had to face to win a Champions League before, with Real Madrid, with Man City and Chelsea and PSG, who are all favorites in some people's eyes to actually win this competition. And to your point, Heath, what I really loved is their ability to adapt to whoever their opponent was. Obviously have some great goalkeeping and some timely goals as well. Always helps, but really impressive.
Jimmy, let me ask you guys this. Let me ask you guys this, just on your experiences, because I was there. I had an incredible seat. I was in a luxury suite, literally sitting next to
your Hollywood Heath Pearce. We assume you're in the VIP section.
It was something that I didn't. Big time flex. It was an incredible experience. But when I look back at it, not that I'm not grateful, I'm curious to get your guys' opinion when it's big games, especially national team games like that. Would you rather be sitting in a stadium, Charlie and Jimmy? You've both done work for television and things like that. Would you rather be in the stadium, whether working or not, watching the game, or do you prefer a quiet atmosphere in the confines of probably your house where you could sort of digest it and work through
Don't even give me that. Bring me to the game all day, every day.
Dude, I was watching it and I was like, I don't know. I kind of probably would prefer to be somewhere quiet where I could actually analyze and watch this game a little bit differently than sort of the spectacle of in a stadium.
If I'm expected to,
but then again, a suite's not the best part. It's not the best place in a stadium.
Yeah,
anyway,
I'm not going to be inside. I want to be outside.
Okay. I feel like if I have responsibilities to speaking about the game, I don't know, I put air quotes around professionally, right? Or analyzing it, then yeah, almost having a quiet atmosphere where I can really look at the nuance of how teams are moving would help. I kind of want a merge of both, though. I remember being at El Clasico before the pandemic hit. It was March 1st. And then it ended up being the epicenter. I was like, oh my God, I think I got it, but didn't end up getting COVID. But that game, I went up high. I tried to find the highest point I could find because I knew I was going to have to analyze it for beIN Sports at the time. But then also I wanted to see how the teams were moving and how they were trying to trap the ball. And it's so much easier to see from like the bird's eye view than if you're too close to the field. I never like sitting too close. As much as I like hearing what the guys are yelling at each other, there's something I really appreciate about being up high at the stadium. So I don't know if anybody wants to jump in on that. All right, let's get into our opponent. Let's talk overall. We got a game on Wednesday, June 1st, U.S. versus Morocco in Cincinnati. And I just want to give a brief overview on Morocco because they went through qualifying undefeated in the group stages. Okay, they had 7 wins, 1 draw. They outscored those teams, those 8 games, 20 goals for, 1 against. That's ridiculous. Okay, and then they went into the qualifying playoffs, which I feel is a bit harsh when you're playing that well. But they go through it. They play Congo. They're 1-1 away from home. Had to score in 76th minute to get that 1-1 result, and then did the business at home, winning 4-1 to make it absolutely certain that they were the better team, and they deservedly booked their ticket to the World Cup. Now, we're going to get into individual players and matchups and all that good stuff, but Charlie, I'll come to you first. What are your overall thoughts on Morocco, currently the 24th ranked team in the FIFA rankings, assuming you take the FIFA rankings into any type of consideration, but they have threats in every line of the fields. Do you think this is a good test for the U.S.?
Yeah, I think it's a great test. And in terms of the FIFA rankings, I don't hold too much, I guess, credence towards it and importance, but I think it does give you an idea, a general sense of where they are. So when I'm looking at this Morocco side, they have some game changers and a ton of experience. A lot of players are playing at the highest level in terms of club. You're looking at, English Premier League players, Champions League players, and sometimes African nations are taken lightly for whatever reason, whether it's Ghana, whether it's Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, just because they typically don't have the limelight. They typically don't have the best shiny sponsorship deals and club jerseys, but these guys can play. This is a great test. And that's why I think in this opening match, we're going to see Greg Berhalter's probably preferred 11 in the World Cup, given that Weston McKennie can start and Christian. But I would like to see how Jesus Ferreira can play against the likes of Morocco.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into your starting 11 here. And I know we talked about it a little bit on the last podcast. So for people that listen to that one, you're going to have a little bit of insight on what Charlie and I were thinking. Heath obviously was being in Hollywood South in Paris. Now let's talk a little bit about the Moroccan manager, Heath Pearce, just to kind of give more context. His name is Vahid Halilhadzic, and he has been in charge of Morocco since August 2019. He used to be a Yugoslavian international. He is a Bosnia native. He scored 211 goals, played striker in 406 matches in his club career. So he knows what he's doing. 8 goals in 15 games for Yugoslavia. He played in the 82 World Cup. Now he's coached for 29 years, which includes teams in Morocco, France, Lille, Rennes, PSG, Nantes, Turkey, Croatia, Dinamo Zagreb. This is the 4th different nation, though, he's managed to a World Cup appearance, along with Ivory Coast in 2010. Algeria in 2014, and Japan in 2018. So he's been a part of the last 3 World Cups, and he has a 21 wins, 1 loss, and 8 draws while in charge of the Atlas Lions. That's the nickname for Morocco. Now, he's had some beef with some of his players. Yeah, he's got a great record, but Hakim Ziyech is the Chelsea's an Ajax, former Ajax player, now Chelsea player, who's super talented, but not called in because he's had some beef with this particular manager, which obviously is a big loss, in my humble opinion, to lose a player of that quality. But if you have an idea of how the team should play, then you got to kind of buy into the coach, whether you like him or not. And that's not happening. How much do you think his experience could help Morocco, not only in the World Cup, but also in this friendly against the U.S.?
You're talking about Ziyech?
Or just the manager. Let's talk the manager.
Yeah. I think he
and any overall thoughts you have on the team.
The hard part when you have a manager that's done that for 30 years, right? Is and we've seen it. The ones that start to get the more experience traditionally don't learn as much, aren't open to new things, and you have these generational gaps over 30 years. The game and player has changed quite a bit. Now, I'm not saying this is the case with the manager, but very well could be. But at the same time, when you're trying to build a team that performs, you want to have the best players on the field at any given time. Now, maybe he's a disruption, maybe he's a distraction to the team. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but he could certainly help. Ziyech could certainly help the team, but the manager has to take control of that very early on. We obviously talk about this all the time with Mexico, of just like the problems with these players sort of stepping out, stepping back in. Ziyech has obviously gotten to a level where, maybe it's ego, maybe it's a lack of like allowing him to play as freely as he does with Chelsea and things like that. But to have a manager like that that's willing to do that, sometimes that can be a fire if some of the players are witnessing something that's not professional, or they feel like somebody was above the law and is no longer the case. But that's a tough decision though, man. You know what it's like when you got to take that player out, that everybody's going to be like, if you don't perform, if you don't get it done in the World Cup, then you don't bring him. I'm not saying that's the case, because we got plenty of months till then, but it can mean a lot.
No, I mean, they got World Cup qualifying, as I mentioned. They cruised through that. But the Africa Cup of Nations back in January, they ended up losing to Egypt in extra time. And I think many questioned how much Ziyech could help in that particular tournament, but it looks like they're moving on without him. He's their John Brooks in some capacity. They're just going to move on without the guy, okay? We don't need him anymore. We know he's talented. We don't need him anymore. So when I take a look at this roster, though, that is playing against us, Yassine Bounou, 31-year-old goalkeeper for Sevilla. He just won the Zamora Trophy in La Liga this past season, Charlie, as the best goalkeeper in all of La Liga. This is ahead of Jan Oblak and Thibaut Courtois, with the best goals against average, only giving up 24 goals in 31 games. Romain Saiss, the center back, over 200 games. He's captain of Wolves, very good long passer of the ball, also captain of his national team. Naif Agurd plays for Rennes, another center back, played in 31 games for Rennes. They helped them finish fourth, got them into the Europa League. I think he's on the radar of some Premier League teams. Could be a good kind of sneaky signing, could get him for a good price. Hakimi and Mazraoui, arguably two of the best right backs in the world, ages 23 and 24 respectively, world-class players in their own right. Mazraoui just signed with Bayern Munich. Hakimi plays for PSG. Both of them are not involved in this game, which is a bit of a shame, because I wanted to see Hakimi against Anthony Robinson and potentially a left side of Christian Pulisic as well. Amrabat holds, from what I understand, the Moroccans consider him one of the most important players, plays for Fiorentina. Didn't really feature. I think only 8 starts this year in Serie A, but did have 23 appearances overall. Taarabt plays for Benfica. Used to play for QPR as an attacking mid. He now kind of plays as a holding midfielder for Benfica, but he's having a bit of a resurgence in his career. And then from there, they got Amin Harit, who plays for Marseille. He's 24, kind of plays everywhere. So you can put him at a winger, you can put him at the 9, put him at the attacking midfielder spot. I'm curious to see where he sets up. Yusuf Enesri, 24-year-old for Sevilla as well. When healthy, is incredibly dangerous in a lot of different ways. And then from there, they have Tusadali, who scored some big goals against Congo. He plays for Ghent in Belgium, one of the top scorers there. They got Ayub El Kabi, who's one of the top scorers in Turkey. And they got some players, Charlie Davies. Is there
kind of untested,
player?
Though. They're kind of.
That's true. That's true.
They had a pretty easy. I mean, there is no easy route to World Cup. But if you look at the groups and
I thought CONCACAF was the easiest way to get into.
No, I mean, sure, they've got to go through multiple rounds, but it wasn't exactly. It's hard to judge based on how good they are as a team. They obviously, you just went through a row of talent, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah. So any players? I mean, the Bounou one, I didn't realize that he had won the Zamora Trophy this year as the best goalkeeper in La Liga. I mean, I knew he was a good goalkeeper, but I didn't know he had the stats to back it up until I actually took a deep dive into it. And like, holy crap, this guy's on fire this season.
I just like that we're playing competitions a little bit different that we haven't seen, because that's what the World Cup is. You're playing against countries and formations and tactics that you're not typically playing, in CONCACAF. That it's a different look at a high level of quality. So for me, again, this camp is not so much, all right, we want to win and lose. It's more, we're getting tested with a group of players, and I want to see how this looks since World Cup qualifying. There's obviously an introduction of new players. How does Tillman look? I think Tillman's could possibly be a big advantage if he can score goals and more of a facilitator than Yunus Musa. So I could see him playing as an 8/10, being in that category. The winger situation, is it Timothy Weah? Is it Brennan Aronson? How do you get both on the pitch if both are playing at a high level? plus the striker, Jesus Ferreira, Haji Wright. You know, there's going to be some
We got some
tinkering.
decisions. We got some
But-
decisions to make.
But this is by the way, Charlie. We talked about this a couple months ago, saying there's probably not going to be any of these sleeper players that come in. Now you've got Haji Wright. Now you've got Tillman. Now you've got guys with legitimate chances, considering the positions that they play, to be a late addition to a World Cup roster. Do you think, or is this like a less of a legit shot than that? I mean, certainly seems like it.
I think for Greg Berhalter, it's I want to see what they're like. How do they react with this group? What do they take away from the vibe and the chemistry within the group? And then on the pitch, how do they train? How when they're playing in these games, do they look out of place, or do they look, oh man, this is really
This is the
intriguing,
missing piece. This
right?
is the guy we need. Yeah.
I think this is for all of them, their one chance. So they either impress and they're staying involved, and obviously Greg Berhalter is going to track their development at their club before the next World Cup camp in September, or it's they're off. Even if they're playing well at their club, I can tell they're a step off. They're not there yet. So I think this is an important month, more so for the training aspect, so they can get a good look and Greg Berhalter sees how they fit in the dynamic more so than anything else.
Do you remember when we did that, or I had that Greg Berhalter interview on HQ? I asked him if he'd be open to kind of sleeper picks, and I named 3 names that really were a bit surprises in 2010. It was Edson Buttle, Robbie Findlay, and Herculez Gomez, and all of them weren't influential in World Cup qualifying at all. But then they have a late run. They're the Malik Tillmans. You know, they are the Haji Wrights of this particular group. And then they went on to have great form leading up to a World Cup. And all 3 of those guys made the team. And Greg Berhalter said, what do all 3 of those players have in common, Jimmy? He dropped my name, Jimmy. He said all 3 of them are attackers. And that's an area of the field where we can take a risk and maybe take a flyer, especially if the rosters get expanded, which it looks like they're going to 26. So Heath, I do think we have, or these players have a really big opportunity, especially based on where they play in and around the field, to take it with both hands and run with it. They really have nothing to lose at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
I was going to say there's a little asterisk with that 2010 team, because you had a
you were hurt,
right?
Unfortunately,
and all of a sudden that injury causes a big void. So it's almost like, well, whoever's hot, we're taking, because we have to figure
Charlie,
out.
how many World Cup qualifiers did you play up to that point? 3 or 4 closing out. Like, I understand that you took that spot from the beginning, but we still had Brian Ching, we still had Connor Casey, we still had who else did we have in and out of the team?
But not at all what the team needed.
Oh yeah, I fully agree. But what I'm saying is we didn't realize the you know the missing pieces when you don't have it, but you don't realize how good that was until it's gone, type of thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so when you look at those types of players, I mean, Herculez Gomez, Golden Boot in Mexico, top performer. Edson Buttle was in a solid run of form, and I think Robbie Findlay was on sort of the best tear. I think he was at like 10 goals or something like that. I don't think he scored much the rest of the year, but he was on fire. Like
it's worth taking a risk if you're going with a guy that has that type of confidence, you know.
And Tillman's a unique case because he's not on fire, right? He's potential, and that's, I think, is a little bit more of a stretch. But Haji Wright, who knows? He could be on a summer transfer that could cool off by November, or he could be on an even bigger tear, saying it's about time you guys started looking at me, because he was scoring goals at Sunderjuska, and was that Sunderjuska, or was it?
He went to Sunderjuska,
yeah. And he was scoring goals there too. And then he had the sort of weird transfer thing where, you know, something weird happened and he ended up staying there.
To Turkey.
Yeah. And I think he just left and said, "You're loaning me." But either way, I think you have to be in consideration of that. And you guys both know from tournaments, whether it's Gold Cups, Confederations Cups, Copa America, any of those ones where you have a significant amount of time to be on the field, even if you're not starting, you get a lot of chances to get looks because you're in a small group. If you're not playing, you're training hard before and after games with a very, very, you know, like Bob used to run our sessions when you didn't play, right? It was Bob that was the one watching. Like the athletic training staff and all that were back with doing regen with the players. And so you get a really good window of time to prove yourself.
Intense.
But a lot of that's in training.
Yeah, I was just to give everybody an injury update with our current roster. Zach Steffen, in case you didn't see it, is out due to family reasons. We hope everything is okay. And Georgi Mihailovic the Montreal Impact, who is an early front runner for MVP. That's how well he's been playing. Got hurt in the 4th minute this past weekend in MLS. I actually haven't heard whether he's going to get called in or not. I assume they're going to call him in, give him a check up and see what it looks like. And maybe he can get in one of those later games, but at least he's in and around the group, because it looked like he was emotional coming off, very Gio Reyna-esque, where he could sense that this was maybe a little bit bigger and probably the worst timing for this to happen for him as he tried to get back into the national team in a more regular way. Those are our real only injury concerns. Weston McKennie, as Charlie said before, looks like he is eligible to start. So let's get into our starting lineups a little bit here. Now, Charlie and I discussed a little bit of this on the last show, so Heath, will come to you first on this. We think that the big question marks are the number 9, or which iteration of the number 9. Do you want to see a Jesus Ferreira actually against a pretty good opponent and some good defenders? Morocco very good defensively. Do we want to maybe try Timo Weah against a very good opponent? Do we want to save that for Uruguay? You know, and then we got the other center back with Miles Robinson out. I should have mentioned him as an injury concern in case you didn't see that. Or if you're living under a goddamn rock, everybody, Miles Robinson is out with an Achilles injury. He's probably going to miss out on the World Cup entirely, which is very disappointing in a lot of different ways. And then there's no Serginho Dest as well. So we have a chance to see a Joe Scally, give Reggie Cannon a full run out. DeAndre Yedlin, we already know what he's about, but maybe you want to give those minutes. One of the big themes that Charlie and I came to on Friday was we got to give some consistency to the team that plays, because you want them to start building these meaningful relationships and continue to build that chemistry and rapport and problem solving when things aren't going right. And against better opponents, it's really important. And we don't want to have a whole bunch of changes at halftime, because then you interrupt the flow and things don't necessarily work. So you want to see at least 60 minutes of whatever team you go with before you start bringing on subs. Where are you on the kind of your overall theme, Heath Pearce, on this game against Morocco on June 1st on Wednesday? And then secondly, like, we'll start to walk us through your lineup so that me and Charlie can laugh at it.
Yeah. Man, no wonder you're coming to me. No wonder you're coming to me first. You guys already talked about this, and then you just teed it up for 4 minutes straight, Jimmy. I mean, you didn't come to me first. You went to yourself first, and then you came to me when you were done. Listen, now I'm flustered, but I think the number 9. I want to see Jesus Ferreira, because I personally have not given him the respect that he deserves for the form that he's in right now. Just because, again, there's so many parts of his game that I always see him coming back on the field, finding the ball. Again, he wasn't the number 9 when Pepe was there. So I've got sort of not a bias to his game, but he's obviously proving everybody right or wrong every single week. And he's in incredible form right now. So I want to see him show that he can not just do the job as like our potential starter or potential whatever. And I want to see him actually step up and rise to being, make Ricardo Pepe's name go away from people, make Haji Wright's name go away from people, and show that he should be the actual starter, regardless of the fact that he's playing in Major League Soccer, regardless of the fact that he's young and doesn't have a ton of experience. So I'd like to see him. I do want to see Haji Wright, just because I haven't seen enough of him to know what level can he bring. And the reason I'm focusing on the strikers right now, 1, because you asked, but 2, because we saw with the center backs, right? We defaulted back to Robinson and Zimmerman and the style of play that they have when we spent a couple of years trying to build out of everything, play through everything. That was Greg Berhalter's ideas, like high and wide, let's spread out. And then we got a little more simple. Now, I'm not saying we don't have a Charlie Davies on this national team. We don't. And so at a certain point, you have to just adapt to that and play a little bit towards that. We accepted that as a defensive team, that we're going to say, okay, we might have to dump a few long. We're not going to be able to pass through the lines every time. John Anthony Brooks is a liability defensively, so what he brings us offensively is not worth it, or whatever Greg Berhalter's reasons are. So I think at the 9 position, we should also start to think about how we're going to evolve our style of play, because otherwise we're going to keep square peg round holing, trying to make some striker like Jesus Ferreira be a behind the back lines type of player, which he's going to add those pieces to his game, or we're going to have Haji Wright be a big target striker and then ask him to do all these other things. Like at a certain point, we're going to have to sort of tighten that up into saying, okay, this is what we got. So we've got to figure out how we're going to get the most out of these players.
Now, just so give some context, as always, Jesus Ferreira, 9 goals and 4 assists in 14 games for FC Dallas this season. FC Dallas currently on 25 points. That ties them for 3rd best in all of MLS. And there's like 3,000 teams in MLS now, so that's pretty impressive. Now, there's another player on FC Dallas, Paul Arriola, 6 goals in his last 5 games. He has been on fire. Charlie, I'm going to come to you. Do you feel like, because how well Arriola is playing right now, who looks like he's in the form of his life, seems to be working through that ACL injury that he had and all the muscle injuries that usually follow an ACL injury, as you try to compensate for not putting all that weight on that knee until you start to trust it. He seems to be right where we'd want a Paul Arriola, and how well he's playing and his movement off the ball and his finishing, and he just looks as confident as I've ever seen him. Do you think it's worth starting him potentially, or do you feel like he's just got to play the role that's probably best for him within this team, and that's as a super sub?
Yeah.
Also, Charlie, I want you to tell me where you put Timo Weah too, if he gets a start out of those 2 games. So when you get to the end of that, also tell me where Timo Weah fits into your strikers if Haji Wright and Jesus Ferreira don't. You got 2 games of importance.
Yes. I would say that one, Paul Arriola is playing out of his mind. He's in the form of his life, but he's not a starter on this team. So why would you start him in these? I'm
just throwing it out there.
I know. I'm just saying, unless players in that position are not good to go. Brandon Aronson's not fit. If Timo Weah is not fit, Gio Reyna would also be the starter, so he would be the top guy there. So I think from that standpoint, let him get used to coming in and changing the game, because he can provide that for this group. Whether you're defensively, marking, the tactics are all about, hey, let's counter, perfect option, or just get in behind, stretch, or whip balls in, get to the end line. He can do that coming off the bench, especially when he's in this form. In terms of Timo Weah, he's got to play. I think with this group coming in now, with no Gio Reyna, with a 9 that's kind of undecided, I think he's going to start on the wing at first. Jesus Ferreira is going to be up top. But I think I told Jimmy this on Friday, I could see Timo Weah being moved to the striker position within the second half. So it's not so much we're going to start you there. We're going to give you a run throughout the game. And maybe we move you there. Brandon Aronson comes out wide right, or Brandon Aronson, is playing the 10 or that 8, and they move him right, and that pushes Timo Weah up top. But I could see Timo Weah getting a run, especially if Jesus Ferreira is not doing it and Haji Wright, it seems to not be up to par in training.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. And as I mentioned on the last show, it's great for us to have this type of depth and this type of options. Heath, Pearce. Now, I'm just going to give you guys my starting lineup because Heath completely deflected and didn't give his, and you guys can pick it apart. Zach Steffen being out, I think Matt Turner is going to be the obvious choice now as the number 1.
Good preface. So would it have been Zach?
I don't know for sure. I think they both. I think they both would have gotten one game. I think one of them would have got Morocco. One of them would have gotten Uruguay. I'll say that. But I think Matt Turner obviously gets it now. The right back position is really interesting for me because we have Cannon, we have Scally, we have Yedlin. I think this. If you're going to bring Scally in, we got to see him. So I think you start Scally. I want to see him. My concern is that Greg's going to be thinking Scally's never been out there for us. We're rolling him out, not necessarily to the Wolves per se, but we're playing a very good opponent, and he's never really been a part of the system. So I wonder if Cannon maybe gets to start. That's just me kind of talking through this. But I'd like to see Scally.
Isn't this the perfect environment where you're not gonna get, no one's getting sent home from having a bad
game
or
I get
a good
that.
game. You're actually playing against a good opponent. Like back in the world before we had all these competitions constantly, you had these friendlies that were like, I remember playing Switzerland and thinking like, wow, what a massive opportunity. It's just Switzerland, but it was like, it wasn't like there was it wasn't cagey where there was points on the line or other those types of things where you change the way in which you play. Is actually, I think, a good environment for a test of any of your players.
No, of course, and I agree with that. I guess, like going back to the theme that we're talking about in the last show, I think there's something that matters with regard to working with the group that you think actually will be the team that you're going to use, because they need as many reps as possible. We only have 6 games until the World Cup starts, and we need as many of those minutes as possible to help our players learn how to problem solve on the field together as a group. And if we're trying guys that could help us, but maybe aren't the guys, I think we risk maybe losing out on those valuable minutes. That's just the play, kind of looking at this 360. I want to see Joe Scally.
Wouldn't that be Serginho Dest? Like, and
it would
if you
be.
don't have your Serginho Dest, wouldn't it then be
That's
like,
true.
Is there anybody else? Like you know what you're going to get from Yedlin. If you don't have Dest, who's your guy who you would start in all those games, and you say, is there something else I can get out of this game? That's how I would be thinking about it.
No.
I know what I'm going to get from Yedlin.
That's a great counter. You also know what you're going to get. Greg knows what he's going to get from Reggie Cannon and DeAndre Yedlin at this point. So I want to see Joe Scally. My concern is that I could see Greg and the coaching staff going, well, are we going to have 2 new guys playing next to each other? Because Walker usually sets up, Walker Zimmerman, at the left center back position. And usually you like to, if you have new guys, kind of sandwich them in. So maybe Walker sets up on the right side. You put Cameron Carter-Vickers on the left side. or Eric Palmer Brown or whatever. So there's a little bit of experience. Anthony Robinson will be the left back. I want to see Eric Palmer Brown. My sense it'll probably be Joe Scally, Aaron Long, Walker Zimmerman, Anthony Robinson. That's what I think Greg's going to do. But I want to see Eric Palmer Brown. I think you go with. I don't mind it. I mean, again,
it's not
it's
a
very
super
similar.
confident back line to me in terms of like experience, form.
I think that Long and Zimmerman
rhythm.
they're kind of the same player. Not the same, but I get the same vibes from them sometimes. Now, I think that the recovery speed for Aaron Long's a better athlete, but I think that Zimmerman has the intangibles. I think he's good communicator, gets guys in good spots to make plays. I think everybody's comfortable with how he moves, and I think he's good on set pieces. I mean, there's a lot of good things. More attacking, and defensively, I think everybody could get a little tighter because those could end up being very key. But I maybe want to see a little bit more contrast in the center back position there. Anyway, maybe I'm biased because I've known Eric since when he was coming through the Kansas City ranks, and I was there. So I'm just kind of proud, and I hope he gets the opportunity. So I'll raise my hand and say there's some bias. I want to see Musa McKennie Adams in midfield. Again, I'd like to see them against a very, very good midfield, I think, from Morocco. And then in the 30-minute mark, maybe you could try to Brendan Aronson at the number 10 or a Luca De La Torre, which we already know what he can bring too. I think that's more situational or based on the opponent about who you want to bring in. If Aronson comes in to start, I think Musa's out and McKennie starts with Adams. And then up top, I think Pulisic, I want to see Ferreira, and I think that Timo Weah will end up getting the start over Brendan Aronson. Or I'd like to see that because I think if we're going to have him, then Timo Weah, that is, I want to see him. I think he's very effective on the right side, and I want to continue to see that. Though that's kind of what I'm thinking. Charlie, I'll come to you. What any changes to what I said? I'm sure.
No, I mean, just Turner. Turner is going to be the starting goalkeeper for both games, and I think it's a good test for him. He has a good opportunity to go over to England and firmly put his name as the number 2 at Arsenal, and then just wait for an opportunity to slip in, whether it's an injury or suspension, and then you try and claim that spot and never look back. But I think Anthony Robinson, 90-minute player, left back is going to be difficult because you really only need one backup left back, and maybe there's an opportunity where Kellen Acosta can play left back if he needs to. Tyler Adams can play left back if he needs to. You have some of these players. Serginho Dest at emergency situation. So left back, not really going to need too much depth there. Zimmerman, he's locked that position up. I know a lot of people are like, how can Zimmerman be the number 1 center back? And he's earned it.
We upset some people. I upset some people.
He's earned it. He is Greg's number 1 center back when he's making the back line. And then so now Cameron Carter-Vickers gets a good opportunity. Curious to see what his feet look like, his movement. Is he quick enough to play with Zimmerman? Eric Palmer Brown, I think he's a proven player now, playing a full season.
Only 3 caps though with the U.S.
Right, and then Aaron Long, who prior to his injury was the number 1 center back, and maybe he's still working his way back up, but he's in the conversation. Greg really trusts him, had brought him along, so it's a good opportunity for him. And I think Yedlin is probably the starting right back. Even though Reggie Cannon had a good run with Boavista, I think he really likes Yedlin, and Yedlin's really playing well for Miami. I mean, he's
you're starting Yedlin in this game.
Yes.
So you have give me your back 4.
Anthony Robinson, Walker Zimmerman.
That's a hard one.
It's
not clear cut, dude. It's not clear cut.
I would like to see Eric Palmer Brown, but I think Aaron Long is going to start.
Same.
And I think Yedlin's going to start. I'd like to see Joe Scally in this game, but I think
Scally will start.
This is who I think starts. I think it's Robinson, Zimmerman, Aaron Long, and Yedlin. I think that's the back 4.
Okay, give us your midfield.
The only difference I would have there.
Go ahead.
By the way, the only difference I would have there, just to jump in, so it's not too much time, is I would say Joe Scally at right back.
Right.
If
that's
you
who
go
you
with
think.
Aaron Long,
not who
I
you want.
think that's what I think. Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's what I want. Also, I want
that as well.
It is a good opportunity to just sort of see him in a very difficult game where you're going to get isolated. You're going to have to make plays. You're going to have to pick and choose your times to go forward. And it's not against, a Caribbean side at home or something like that, where it's harder to really judge.
Yeah, they're
you're
just
playing
sitting
a
11 players.
Like you're gonna have to go through the ebb and flow of a match against a Morocco who, might pin you back, or their combination play and things like that, where you really got to be on your game. So I just like to see him, and if Aaron Long is there, I think we could see it as well. If it's Eric Palmer Brown, then maybe we don't see Joe Scally, just because of that rhythm together and inexperience could turn to disaster. And you don't want to put these players in positions to fail.
No, of course not. But I mean, this is sink or swim time as well. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration. What I'll say about Joe Scally, when you're watching this game, and it's happening June 1st in Cincinnati, 7:30 p.m. Eastern is kickoff or close to it. It's on ESPN2 for everybody here in the States. Make sure you watch it, because we're going to have a live post-game show, as we do here on the channel in Soccer We Trust, and obviously a breakdown of what happened for our podcast listeners as well. So I think Joe Scally, the spacing, like, how does he, if Anthony Robinson goes forward, what are his immediate instincts to slide in? Where does he slide in? I think you're looking at all these things. When he does get the ball and go forward, how is it in connection with Timo Weah or whoever's in front of him, and in connection with Yunus Musa, whoever's in midfield? How does he support the play? How is he supporting, passing lanes? How when he gets isolated, as he says, how is he defending 1v1 situations? How is he taking info from the center backs when they're giving him good communication, or just communication might not necessarily be good? And how do we, all these little things are going to be really important in terms of how he transitions into the team. So I'm curious that this isn't just isolated to Joe Scally. This is pretty much any new player that's jumping in. We could say the same thing about Haji Wright if he gets some valuable minutes. So tell me about your midfield, Charlie, then we'll get to Heath's midfield.
Yes. So Adams and McKinney are locks. They're 90-minute players. You're not substituting them in the World Cup. So a third option, this is where it gets interesting, because Yunus Musa has been the guy. That's been your locked player in that position. But I just feel that in instances, I need to see Yunus Musa progress. I need to see him develop in terms of scoring goals out of midfield and being a facilitator, much more concrete in the final third, with passes that are breaking down a line, splitting lines, and then that allows Christian or Timo to get on the end of it, and then their next pass is a tap in or a cross. I need to see a little bit more from him from that position. Now, if it's not him, I think this is a great opportunity to see what Brandon Aronson can look like in that position, because he's going to be playing in the 10 role for Leeds United in the Premier League. So if he can handle it there and play week in and week out, then he can definitely be the guy for us with the national team. And his movement, I think, will be a huge benefit to whoever is playing the 9, because, we talk about the support that the 9 has for the U.S. Sometimes they're on an island. Well, all of a sudden, if you have Brandon Aronson running underneath you and being that support and drawing players out of position, that might be the key to unlock the 9 position for the U.S. So right now, I think it's going to be Musa to start, but I would love to see Tillman and Aronson in that position.
Okay, Heath?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd say about Aronson is that, again, that combination with the striker, I'm curious to see if he could be in that 10 spot, just because he certainly has the capability, but he has been playing traditionally in a gegenpress, which is, again, winning it's not a build-up play. It's not having to play through the lines. It's winning the ball in high positions. And I think Greg Berhalter wants that. We just haven't seen a great pressing game from this national team, where it's a little bit more of like winning the ball when the team's disorganized, kind of capitalize on those types of mistakes. Whereas when I think about, like, obviously we don't have Gio Reyna, but when I think about a player who's capable of playing the player on their back at all times, or drifting off to the weak side to be able to advance forward, there's very few players in our national team that I think could do that. I'm interested to see Yunus Musa almost switch with McKinney, because McKinney is the late runner and he sets up a little bit higher on the field. That almost feels at times that Yunus Musa is sort of the connection between them and has a little bit more lateral, and changing the point of attack, kind of advancing the ball on the dribble. But it always seems like Weston McKinney's further up the field, and I always see Yunus Musa as a player who has the capability of being someone who can almost play underneath the strikers and connect with the strikers. That could be wrong as well.
It's like Nagby. He almost plays in the mold of Nagby, right? Left to right, great in position, can dribble out of tough instances where he's outnumbered. But you're like, give me that goal,
Yeah, are you an attacker? Are you a midfielder?
But I don't even know if he knows. That's how young he is, by the way. But I think when we see young players, and we can use Vinicius Jr. As an example, when he first got started with Real Madrid, it's like he dribbled when he should maybe pass, and he passed when maybe he should dribble. And it's just getting through those repetitions. And you could see that they trusted him and obviously valued his quality. And now it's bearing a lot of fruit, right? Scoring the winner in the Champions League final. But Musa needs, I think, a little bit of that as well, where he can try things without necessarily the fear of getting subbed out, and I still feel like he's in a situation with Valencia where maybe that trust isn't completely there. Whereas with us, he is, but I feel like maybe we're asking him to do things that handcuff his ability to go forward. I don't know. There's a lot to unpack there. We do know that he plays out wide right sometimes for Valencia. And that kind of speaks to what you're saying, Charlie and Heath, that he can and does have the quality to do more. And that's what we want to see out of him. And I think that will come as he continues to age. Now let's get into the front three. And Charlie, come back to you on this. Now, Morocco, in their must-win game against Congo in the second leg of World Cup qualifying in Africa, they went with a 5-3-2. Now, we know that morphs into a 3-5-2 when they go forward, or a 3-5-1-1. Hakimi, Mazraoui, their two outside backs, probably two of the top in the world, are not in this one. They're friendly on June 1st. But they're probably still going to set up the same way. This is really important for our front three to figure out ways to solve this, because this is the team that knows who they are. They've had a lot of success in this formation. Who are you going with in this game? I have a pretty good idea who it is, but why don't you repeat it for us? Charlie, that is. Sorry.
For our front three.
Our front three, yeah.
Yeah. Christian Pulisic.
I've heard of him.
Left wing, 90 minutes, so he's not coming off. Up top, Jesus Ferreira is going to get the nod. He's a leading goal scorer in Major League Soccer. On top of finishing out strong in World Cup qualifying. I think he's earned Greg Berhalter's trust, and he's only getting better. He's working on the areas of his game.
That's a good point. He's getting better. That's what's kind of nice.
He's working on the games that were kind of, I think, his deficiency in terms of like stretching the back line, making good runs, not just checking for the ball all the time. Be multidimensional, and I think we're starting to see that from him. So this is an opponent that is a good test to see where he truly is. And then on the right side, at this moment, it's Timo Weah. He's going to be your starter.
So Aaronson's off the bench for you.
Yes.
Okay. Heath, how about you?
Yeah, I would say Timo Weah. I continue to go back to this idea of
number 9 or on the right side?
On the right side, but I
so you have
continue to go back
Pulisic
to this
and
idea
Ferreira.
of like Pulisic, Ferreira, and Timo Weah across my front line. But I kind of want to just figure, like, I know it's too late in the game and it's stupid, but like, why can't we try something else? Why can't we try a different formation? Why do we need to have, I mean, Timo Weah has to be in these types of vertical positions. I get that. But why can't it be a 4-4-2 or a hybrid in terms of a system of play when you attack and when you defend, your defensive shape in a 4-4-2 or a 4-3-3, and then
your two if you play with two.
Well, I just think about getting. I just think about getting anybody, whether that's Aaronson, whether that's Weah. I would love to see Weah next to a Jesus Ferreira or even I'm blanking on his name now in Turkey.
But if you went
Haji, Haji, right? Like I think about just getting. I just continuously keep racking my brain on how do we get more players closer to our strikers to have a little bit more of that flow and gameplay, whether that's checking and going, like all those types of things. We've just sort of given up on a 2-striker system, and it makes us kind of one-dimensional at times to play against.
Well, the problem is we have all our talent in the midfield.
Yeah. Well,
think of Gio Reyna if he's healthy, and you're trying to get all these players in form. If Brendan Aaronson's playing every week, Timo Weah is now starting up top at Lille or playing every week and getting goals and assists. How can you tell when they come back to the national and you say, you know what, you're on the bench, you know these guys are in form. So I agree with you in that, Heath.
What I was
so you're saying you're saying we've got to play a formation that gets our best players on the field because naturally, as opposed to something that maybe gets the most out of the striker or the team.
But I think you can have it both ways, though. You can have it. You can have it both ways.
We cut off.
Your back four is the same. You have McKinney and Adams. You have Musa can slide over to the right. Pulisic just drops in a little bit more, and he does like to drop in a little bit at times to pick up the ball in deeper spaces and turn and run and break the lines. And then you could have a Ferreira Weah kind of front two. I mean, it could still morph into that if you wanted, Heath. I'm trying to find a compromise with what you're saying. Maybe a little bit too late in the game, to your point, to maybe make this happen. But
we were playing keep away with you, Jimmy.
I know. And now I'm finally picking up on it. Now, I think obviously the subs, first 3 subs for me, Haji Wright, Brendan Aronson, and so I guess it depends if Scally starts or not. But and then maybe how the game plays out. But I wouldn't mind potentially taking out Musa and bringing in a De La Torre or Mihailovic is healthy, just to see what those guys look like in the last 30 minutes. And want to reward Areola potentially for his form and see how he does, against better competition. Same kind of reasoning that we have for Ferreira. But this is going to be a great game. I'm looking forward to it, and it should be a lot of fun. And as a reminder, turn on your notifications after you hit like and subscribe, and hit subscribe on your podcast platform of choice as well, because we are going to go live right after the game on June 1st against Morocco to break everything down. And we're also going to take our first break. Speaking of breaks, when we come back, we're going to preview another big game on Wednesday. Scotland takes on Ukraine. The winner of that will take on Wales, and the winner of that will face us in the World Cup, which should be a lot of fun. That'll be our first game of that tournament. We're also going to talk about Nottingham Forest and Ethan Horvath, another goalkeeper of ours. Probably being second string as he goes up to the Premier League. That's kind of what we like to do. A nice little tradition. And I guess Gaga Slonina's got some interest from Real Madrid. We're going to get into that as well. So don't go anywhere.
Shall we begin?
Step 1,
2, 3.
That's perfectly normal. It's an honor.
here we go.
Why are you so handsome?
My dad was a weatherman. That sounds big. It's been on my vision board for years.
Welcome back to In Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Charlie Chuckwagon Davies and Hollywood Heath Pearce. We're excited to have you guys with us and part of the community. So thank you for all the likes and subscribes and all the 5-star reviews and you telling all of your friends. That helps us grow this amazing community that we already have. We want to continue to get out the good vibes to as many people as possible. Well, let's talk about this Scotland versus Ukraine game. Now, Steve Clark is the manager of Scotland. His team has actually won each of their last 6 qualification games, including a 2-0 success over Denmark last November, though Denmark had already qualified, so take that with a grain of salt. Since then, they've played twice, and this was back in March. They drew with Poland and Austria in friendlies. So this is going to be a big one for them. They do. Kieran Tierney's out for this one. I think there's another 1 or 2 players that are out. With regard to Ukraine, they got second in their group behind France. No big surprise. They got 12 points from their 8 matches in European qualifying. That finished 1 point above third place Finland. They have not been to the World Cup since 2006. They reached the quarterfinals of that, and they lost 3-0 to Italy and Hamburg. That's the World Cup I played in, flex of the day. And then back in the Euros, they lost 4-0 to England in the quarterfinals. And yeah, that wasn't a great game for them, but it seemed like that was their ceiling. That was as far as they were going to go. They have some talented players, of course. And I just wonder about the emotional weight that comes with this game because of everything that's happening with the Russia invasion. And then playing in Scotland, playing at Hampton Park in Glasgow. Heath and I have both played there. It's not an easy place to play. It's not an easy place. That is a real 12th man feel. And Scotland are very good at home in particular. Now, as I mentioned before, there are some injury concerns. Kieran Tierney plays for Arsenal. He's definitely out. Ryan Jack was the other one. He got forced to pull out of the squad. They have an uncapped Alan Campbell coming in for him, which is, you got that's a little dicey at times. Scott McTominay is probably going to be in central midfield. They got Andy Robertson plays for Liverpool on the last other side. You got Callum McGregor, Stuart Armstrong, Billy Gilmore, other players that can play for Scotland. And with regard to Ukraine, some names you probably know: Zinchenko from Manchester City, Yarmolenko, Yaremchuk, Malinovsky from Atalanta. They've got some players, and so this is going to be a great game. But I wonder emotionally if this is too much. Charlie, I come to you first. Who do you like in this game, and who do you think is going to win, and how? And do you think Ukraine have any chance?
I just think Scotland have the upper hand in this, playing at home, and Ukraine's coming in with emotion. This is more than a match for them. This is they're putting the weight of their country on their shoulders.
And it's a single match, right? Single elimination match.
Only
It's
90 minutes,
one game,
90 minutes.
and then
One
you play again
game.
on Sunday. Yeah.
That's right, against Wales.
When you
in Wales,
when
right?
you factor in that, it's going to be one hell of a game. They're coming with everything. They will empty the tank in this match. And although Scotland will have the upper hand, I wouldn't count out Ukraine in this situation. When you're playing with that much emotion, and so much pride, and the pressure to kind of be the bright spot for Ukraine that all Ukrainians can rally around, and not only Ukraine, the world, they're going to be the world's team if they can get to this World Cup.
So just so everybody knows, in the spirit of context, which is a big theme for me for whatever reason, this particular show, this is the first competitive match for Ukraine since November 16th and they beat Bosnia Herzegovina 2-0 in their final World Cup qualifier. Heath, do you think that lack of sharpness, match sharpness? I know a lot of these guys play at top clubs around the world, but not really being around each other obviously is an issue. And I do want to give a shout out to the Scottish FA. Has been fantastic, allowing the delay of this game to be played. Everybody being very cool about the situation and making sure that this was as fair as possible entering into this. But I feel like maybe that works against Scotland, knowing that Ukraine is the team of the world, and everybody kind of wants to see Ukraine have success.
Yeah, the thing is obviously we've been going through the invasion of Ukraine with Russia for a while now, and I just wonder how much that's worn on the players, that's worn on the fans. If you go back to November, like you said, Jimmy, that last game, that was when they found out who they were playing in a playoff. And it was supposed to happen in February or March, that playoff, but that's who they found out that they were going to be playing against. Like, that's been what, 6-7 months now that they've had this playoff looming. And that's a lot to weigh on any team. And so to be able to have that home field advantage, I think, is obviously going to be a big swing for Scotland that gives them the upper hand. Whereas, again, I agree with Charlie that you don't want to play against the world's team right now. And Ukraine have a little bit of that sauce, and rightfully so, of being supported globally. But when you step into that stadium for 90 minutes, it's still a hard place to play, and Scotland can make you run. They can make the game fast. They can make it uncomfortable and play in a different way. They're willing to play in a different way than I think than I think Ukraine will want to play. And so I still have a little bit of this edge, which is funny because before I started really looking into this game, I was kind of Ukraine all the way, just on like pure
vibes,
you know, like I'm just like, they're a good team. They have a lot of good players, and they're the world's team right now. Whereas now, when I'm thinking about Hampden Park, when I'm thinking about Scotland, when I'm thinking about the Scottish fans, and what the atmosphere will be like, it's going to be a very difficult place to go and get a result.
Yeah, I agree. You guys think that Scotland will win? I think it's going to be tight, but I think Scotland does enough to edge it. Charlie?
Yeah, I think ultimately Scotland wins.
There's a part of me, though, that wants to see Scotland or Wales go through, because then they have to play England, and we know that's a big rivalry. You say Scotland as well, Heath?
Yeah, I'm saying Scotland as well.
All right. I respect that. It means that Ukraine's probably going to do it. We just jinxed Scotland. Sorry, all of our Scottish fans. So let's talk a little about news and notes here towards the end of the show. Nottingham Forest and Ethan Horvath came on at the very end, in the last 6 or 7 minutes of that game, to secure a big 1-0 win for them to get them promoted back up to the Premier League. And again, he's a goalkeeper that's going to be playing. We have 7 players now, U.S. men's national team players, playing in the Premier League for this upcoming season. But 3 of them are goalkeepers, and all 3 of them are backups. So that's obviously a bit of a concern. Speaking of goalkeepers, Slonina apparently being linked to Real Madrid, which is crazy and awesome in one hand, but then also that's another goalkeeper of ours that will be playing behind somebody else. So any thoughts here? Any news and notes?
More than one person. He's not going to be the backup.
Hey, we had generations of players playing behind somebody else in all positions in our national teams, guys. But I mean, it's hype, right? And we don't know much about Slonina. We've talked about it. Charlie's been rightfully critical of his form and his feet and things that need to develop because he's a kid and he's got to get those games. Now, I think being in a professional environment, we know Greg was talking about how, you know, Zach Steffen in his environment is better than where his players competing with him are spending their club time. But I go back to the fact that Real Madrid once had a young guy named Iker Casillas, who was the youngest player to debut in the Champions League, which is a record that's been broken, and play in La Liga. And he did it around 17. He got called into the first team around 17 years old. He made his debut, I think, at 18. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that he was obviously a big star and a huge part of the growth of Spanish football, but he was a young player that they gave a chance to. They still had to be willing to give him a chance. Donnarumma, a player that they had to be willing to give a chance, who's still quite young now. I'm not saying Slonina is anywhere near what those players are, but I'm just trying to hold out hope that as a young player, he can land on his feet quicker or sooner than later.
Copa del Rey games. Get some Copa del Rey games.
I just don't want him to get buried for 4 years and now we go, well, he's still only 22 and like now he's going to get his, like, I know that's young for a goalkeeper, but that doesn't help us in the national team, you know?
No, it doesn't. Any thoughts on these news and notes here, Charlie Davies, with regard to our goalkeepers, Ethan Horvath?
No, you know, I think it's important that Slonina goes somewhere where he's going to develop. And he's not going to just be, you know, it's a marketing ploy if he goes to Madrid. He's not playing. He's not touching the pitch. No chance. And if he goes to another massive club, he's not touching the pitch. Have you watched him play in the last month? No way.
But we could argue Zach Steffen's gotten better by playing with Manchester City, even if he's sitting behind Ederson. I mean, the guys he's going up against on a regular basis are ridiculous. Now, I know getting games are incredibly important and so vital to the evolution of a player. But for him, if Gaga Slonina does go to Real Madrid, now this is assuming he's with the first team, they could see him and be like, all right, we need to go play with the B team.
I don't even think he's going to be a number 2.
But behind Thibaut Courtois, learning from him, playing with Ancelotti, I mean, it's crazy how much experience he could gain very quickly. But eventually, he's going to need games.
Yes, he'll be loaned out wherever he goes. But I think he just needs to go to a club where he's going to play. He's going to play every weekend at a high level. That is how he's going to get to where he needs to go. Now, of course, there's the element of learning because he's so young. Going to a top club where the goalkeeper coach, the goalkeeper who's playing are going to look out for him. But how many times have we seen in our professional careers? I know goalkeepers are different, but it's almost like, all right, you do your own thing. I'm here to focus on me and my life. And you're not coming here to take my job. And, you have the academy coaches who can help you. I'm not here to help you and help you grow.
Right. No, it's interesting. That's a good thought. I think if I'm Gaga Slonina and his family, if Real Madrid came calling, of course you're gonna say yes, and I wouldn't begrudge him.
Jimmy, because we all heard the stories about Freddie Adu not taking Inter Milan. He didn't go to Inter Milan. He should have gone to Inter Milan. Freddie Adu should have. What are the other 3 or 4?
That's for damn sure. We know.
Well, he should have gone and done that, but I don't know if it would have worked out anyway. Given now what we know about him, he doesn't stick very long at any of the clubs. But maybe
I think at that stage, when you're surrounded by those type of professionals and those coaches,
true. That's fair.
And there's a box around you. You can't do this. You can't do that. You got to do this. And he wasn't in a position where he's playing with guys he looks up to. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Now you go to Inter Milan and you're looking
He's talking about you, Heath.
Crespo. You're looking at Adriano and Crespo and these type of strikers and these type of playmakers. Well, you're going to listen. And that ego goes out the door real quick.
Yeah. They don't give a shit about your feelings at that level for sure. All right, everybody, we are going to call it a show. It's done. No, Heath, I don't even know what you're saying from Paris. I'm calling it a show.
Keep going.
It's over. Stop interrupting me. It is done. We're going to come back and join everybody after the U.S.-Morocco game. It's going to be a late night one for some of you across the country, but it should be a lot of fun because we're going to have a lot to talk about here on In Soccer We Trust. So we appreciate your support as always. So on behalf of producer Des, producer Alex, Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies, and Hollywood Heath Pearce, I'm Jimmy Conrad saying thank you for listening and watching In Soccer We Trust. We'll see you next time. Later.